Hello everyone, my name is Hari Gautam. I am a PhD scholar at the National Institute of Plant Genome Research at Delhi. Today I am going to take you through the chapter 9 of NCERT class 12, which is strategies for enhancement of food production. This video is part of the Donate Your Time for Nation Building series by Delhi Knowledge Track. So, why is there a need for enhanced food production? There are 3 points. Number 1, ever increasing population. Mankind has been populating planet Earth at a tremendous rate, particularly in the last century. So, it is important to have enough food to feed this growing population. Number 2, agricultural losses. Humans cultivate crops in agricultural field for human consumption, but at times there are pathogens and insects which also consume these crops, which causes a loss for human consumption. So, in order to compensate this loss, there is a need to increase the food production. Number 3, low productivity. What is productivity? Productivity is the production per unit. If we take the example of a cow, the amount of milk produced by a single cow is called productivity. Among the livestock population in the world, nearly 70% is present only in India and China together, whereas just 30% is present in the rest of the world. But this 70% contributes just 25% to the world's farm produce, whereas the remaining 70% is contributed by this 30%. So, the livestock productivity is very low. So, an professional approach is required where conventional practices are combined along with newer technologies to improve the productivity and quality of agricultural produce. The chapter Strategies for Enhancement of Food Production has 4 units: animal husbandry, plant breeding, single cell protein and tissue culture. Under plant breeding, there are 3 subunits: plant breeding for disease resistance, for insect pest resistance and for improved food quality. Whereas animal husbandry is divided into 4 parts: management of farm and farm animals, both dairy and poultry, animal breeding, beekeeping and fisheries. What is animal husbandry? Animal husbandry is the agricultural practice of taking care, breeding and raising of livestock. Livestock include cows, buffaloes, goats, sheep, camel, pigs and horses. This husbandry of animal has been practiced from time immemorial. Nowadays, it is an important farmer skill. It is both an art and science. Animal husbandry is not limited only to these animals. It also includes rearing of silkworm, which is called sericulture, rearing of birds or poultry, rearing of honeybees, which is called apiculture, and catching and rearing of aquatic animals, which is called fisheries. These animals are raised for consumption of these products, which are milk, egg, meat from animal and birds, and fish, honey, silk for textiles, and wool, leather, pearl, etc. Now, let us go through the dairy farm management. Dairying is the management of animals for milk production and for other products which are for human consumption. So, there are 5 basic points to be followed in the management of a dairy farm. Firstly, the selection of a quality breed. A breed is a type or a variety of an animal. There are various breeds of cows available. So, one has to select the suitable breed of cow suitable for the climatic condition of the area where the farm is situated. The breed must have a high milk yielding potential. The quality of meat must be high, that is, it must produce lean meat with less lipids, and it must have resistant to diseases. So, these are the qualities desirable in a breed. Secondly, these animals must be housed well with adequate water supply and a disease free environment, so that the animals do not fall sick, which would eventually affect the yield. Thirdly, a scientific manner of feeding the cattle with quality and sufficient quantity of fodder. Fodder is the dried straw or hay which is harvested along with certain crops. The cleanliness and hygiene must be stringent both for the cattle and handler, so that the cattle remains disease free and the produce produced is in a good condition. Lastly, storage and transport of the produced must be done in appropriate conditions and in appropriate temperatures, that is, milks are transported at a chilling temperature from the place of production to the place of processing or packing till distribution. However, these days most of these activities or management practices are mechanized, which reduces the direct contact with the handlers. In addition to these 5 basic management practices, there are 3 important practices which are regular inspection to ensure that these basic practices are followed strictly, record keeping, which is very important to identify and rectify problems as early as possible, and mandatory regular visits by the veterinary doctor to take care of the health of these animals. Poultry farm management, it is, the concepts are the same between dairy farm management and poultry farm management. So, poultry includes the class of domesticated fowls or birds, which include chicken, duck, turkey, geese and other birds depending upon the locality. In short, the points discussed in the previous slide are the breed, the selection of a breed is important, which must be suitable according to the local condition. It must be disease free and it must have resistance to certain diseases. The safe farm conditions must be maintained. Proper feed and water must be provided to the birds. Hygiene and health care of the birds is of utmost importance, which eventually decides the yield of a poultry farm. Why are these management practices so important? Have you heard about the bird flu virus in news? This virus drastically reduces reduction in consumption of meat and eggs from poultry farm because of the fear of these viruses spreading to humans. It also puts the birds sick. Now, we have taken a look at the management practices of a farm. Now, the second component of animal husbandry is animal breeding. The main aim of animal breeding is to increase the yield of the breed and to improve the desirable qualities such as disease resistance. So, breeding means mating or crossing of animals. So, an important terminology in breeding is breed. What is a breed? A breed is a group of animals related by descent and similar in most characters like general appearance, features, size, configurations, etc. Let me repeat, a breed is a group of animals related by descent, that is, it is related by either parents or related by the ancestry, and it has similar characters like general appearance, features, size and size configurations, etc. That is, look at these puppies, these are very similar in their fur color, their height and length. So, these puppies belong to the same breed. Whereas, look at these dogs, though they are of the same species, they are called different breeds because they do not look similar at the first place. For example, the fur color, the characteristics of ears, the characteristics of mouth, height and other configuration. So, a breed could be used as same breed in this case or could be used as different breeds in this case. So, the first type of animal breeding is inbreeding. Inbreeding is the breeding within, inbreeding is the breeding within the same breed, that is within the same breed which are similar in appearance. Of these breeds should be closely related individuals, that is they should have either similar parents or same parents or a similar or same ancestry, that is the parents of the parents, and this inbreeding has to be performed to, this fashion of breeding has to be performed to 4 to 6 generation down the way, then it is called inbreeding. So, in inbreeding a superior male is crossed with a superior female of the same breed. What is a superior female? A superior female could be a cow or buffalo with more lactations with more milk per lactation. A superior male could be a bull which produces superior progeny compared to others. So, after a superior male is crossed with a superior female, the progenies, that is the calves which are produced, are evaluated, and based upon the evaluation they are used for further mating. And this is performed for nearly 4 to 6 generation, which is called inbreeding. So, inbreeding increases the homozygosity. It means it increases the alleles of genes to be of the same type. You know that genes are responsible for the phenotypic appearances of the characters which are expressed, and these genes have alternate forms called as alleles. So, if inbreeding is performed, the alleles become the same as inbreeding proceeds. So, this produces pure lines. So, pure lines are those which are homozygous for most of the genes present. So, inbreeding eliminates harmful recessive alleles and accumulates superior genes. A superior female is crossed with a superior male to produce progenies. So, these progenies are evaluated and selected. So, these progenies would be further mated. Even mating of this fashion is possible. Let us consider two genes A with two alleles capital A and small a, and the other gene B with the two alleles capital B and small b. So, the chances of these alleles getting into the progeny are capital A, capital B, capital B, capital B, or capital A, small a, capital B, or capital A, capital B, small b, or small a, small b, small b. So, let us consider the gene A is for milking and gene B is for disease resistance. So, the capital A allele produces better milk, whereas the small a allele will produce a lesser milk. Similarly, capital B is for resistance and small b is for susceptibility for a particular disease. So, in this case, all these three progenies will be selected because they express both milking and disease resistant trait, whereas this particular progeny will not be selected for further inbreeding. So, this way the harmful recessive allele genes are eliminated. Since this won't be selected, this doesn't go again. These alleles are stopped within this individual itself, this combination of alleles. Whereas accumulation of superior genes, so the superior alleles get accumulated. So, any progeny produced by this or this is always going to provide the capital A allele. Or any progeny produced by this individual is going to produce the capital B allele, these two. So, this way the homozygosity increases to produce pure lines, whereas the recessive harmful lines are eliminated. In the process of inbreeding, I told you that the homozygosity increases to produce pure lines, but that itself becomes a disadvantage at times, which is called inbreeding depression. Sometimes these homozygous pure lines, which have been bred through continuous inbreeding for 4 to 6 generations, start performing poor. Now, in order to improve these pure lines, if we continue inbreeding, since we have eliminated other alleles, there is no scope for variation and thus improvement. There is no scope for the other alleles to come into these homozygous pure lines, because we have been inbreeding continuously to 4 to 6 generation to produce homozygous pure lines. So, this can be overcome by a type of outbreeding called outcrossing. So, what is outbreeding? Outbreeding is the opposite of inbreeding. Inbreeding is the breeding within the same breed of closely related individuals. Outbreeding is the breeding of unrelated animals. Here it is related animals in inbreeding, here it is unrelated animals. Unrelated could be in 3 types, is of 3 types, which is outcrossing, crossbreeding and interspecific hybridization. In outcrossing is similar to inbreeding, except because it is the breeding of this, it is the crossing of the same breed, except for the difference that the individuals are unrelated because they should not have any common ancestors. The second type of outbreeding is crossbreeding, where different breeds are crossed with each other. And the third type is interspecific hybridization, where the cross is between two different but related species. So, let us take a look at outcrossing first. Outcrossing is the crossing between the same breed of individuals, but the individual should not have any common ancestors on either side of the pedigree. Both the male and the female should not have common ancestors in between, and that should be up by 4 to 6 generations. Up to 4 to 6 generation above, they should not have any common ancestor, and the resulting animal out of a outcrossing is called an outcross, and this is used to overcome inbreeding depression. The second type of outbreeding is crossbreeding, where the breeding is a cross between two different breeds. So, by performing crossbreeding, desirable quality of two different breeds are combined into a single individual, which is called a hybrid. The hybrid, that is the progeny hybrid, is either used as such for commercial purpose, or it is bred among with other such similar hybrids to perform inbreeding to develop a stable and a new breed by itself. An example for crossbreeding is the sheep crossbreed called Hisardale, which was developed in Punjab. Hisardale was produced by crossbreeding a female sheep which is called Eves, the breed and belonging to the breed Bikaneri, and the male sheep which are called Rams, belonging to the breed Merino. So, by crossing these two different breeds of sheep, the crossbreed Hisardale was developed. These are examples of crossbreeds of sheep and goat produced by the Central Sheep Breeding Farm at Hisar, which is at Haryana. The third type of outbreeding is interspecific hybridization, where different but related species are used in the cross. This is performed to combine the desirable features of both the parents or both the species, which is of economic value. An example for interspecific hybridization is a mule. It is produced by a cross between a female horse called mare and a male donkey which is called jack. So, mule was produced by crossing a mare and a jack. So, the advantage of mule, that is the economic value of mule, are when compared to horse, these are patient, these are hardy, that is resistant to tough conditions, and these are long lived. They have an increased lifespan. When compared to donkey, they are less stubborn and more intelligent. Now, we have seen the types of animal breeding which are performed through natural mating. Now, let us take a look at controlled breeding experiments, which are artificial experiments to perform breeding in controlled conditions. The first type is artificial insemination. This is performed by a breeder who selects a superior male, in this case a bull, and collects the semen, the fluid which contains the male gametes for reproduction. He collects it from a superior desirable male or a bull, and it is injected into the reproductive tract of a female, a cow, non-surgically, to cause fertilization. This is either done immediately after the collection of the semen, or it is stored in appropriate lower temperatures and then transported and used somewhere else. Now, why is artificial insemination required? Because it increases the efficiency of a bull usage. What does that mean? It means the semen used by a male bull to fertilize a female in natural condition, natural condition can be used, if used artificially, to fertilize a number of female cows. And secondly, it decreases the cost, that is the bull maintenance cost. Maintaining a bull is a costly affair, because when compared to cows, a bull consumes a lot of feed and fodder, and at the same time handling a bull is difficult, because comparatively it is ferocious than a cow. And artificial insemination reduces the disease transmission which would have occurred through natural mating. The second type of controlled breeding experiment is MOETT, which is multiple ovulation embryo transfer technology. This term has two parts: embryo transfer technology and multiple ovulation. So, this is performed to improve the herd, that is to increase the size, which is called herd improvement. Here a superior cow, that is a cow with high milk yielding capacity, is selected. It is administered with certain hormones. These hormones have FSH like activity, that is follicle stimulating hormone like activity, which induces the follicle maturation. Follicles are those structures where the eggs, the female gametes, are produced, and causes super ovulation. What is super ovulation? Super ovulation is the production of 6 to 8 eggs per cycle in the place of 1 egg per cycle, which happens naturally. So, after super ovulation, this superior cow is mated with a superior bull, or it is fertilized through artificial insemination. Now, all or most of these 6 to 8 eggs produced artificially inside the body of the cow are fertilized. These fertilized eggs, when they reach 8 to 32 cell stage, are recovered non-surgically from the cow and transferred to a surrogate mother, to another cow. The cow in which hormones are administered for super ovulation and followed by fertilization is called the genetic mother, and the cow which receives the fertilized egg is called a surrogate mother. Now, after this procedure, the genetic mother is available for another round of super ovulation. By this way, 6 to 8 fertilizations can happen simultaneously, which is used for herd improvement. So, multiple ovulation means super ovulation after administration of hormones, and embryo transfer technology is the transfer of these the fertilized eggs from the super ovulation eggs from the genetic mother to the surrogate mother, and this has been observed to be successful in cow, sheep, rabbits, buffaloes and mares. Now, the second component of animal husbandry is beekeeping, which is called as apiculture. It is the maintenance of hives of honeybee for the production of honey. So, this is a artificial hive, and these are the frames within which the honeybees build their comb, which stores the honey. It is an age old cottage industry. It is both a small, it is practiced both as a small scale as well as a large scale industry. Apis indica is the species of honeybee which is mostly reared in India. The products of honeybee are honey and bee wax. Honey is a nutritive food, as well as it has an important place in the individual system of medicines, that is the medicine practices developed in India, and bee wax is used in industries producing cosmetics and polishes. The advantage of apiculture, that is it is an easy component of animal husbandry. These hives could be set up anywhere, like the courtyard, veranda or the roofs above the house, because these are very compact boxes, and the only condition is that bee pasture must be available in the surrounding area, which include wild shrubs, fruit orchards, cultivated crops which has nectar bearing flowers, which is the food for the honeybees, as well as is the mother material for honey, and it is not a labor intensive process. Though apiculture is a easy component of animal husbandry, it has certain requirements of special knowledge. The knowledge on nature and a habit of bees. One must know how, so that one must know to handle a honeybee. Selection of a suitable location for keeping the beehives. Beehives should be kept at places with minimum disturbances, and catching and hiving of swarm. A swarm is a group of bee. So, at times what happens, the colony of honeybees move away from these hives and start creating a natural hive in the branches of the trees nearby. At such times, the one who raises these honeybees must have knowledge on catching these honeybees, this swarm of honeybees back into the hives. The fundamental thing is that these honeybees always stay with the queen bee. So, one must know to identify the queen bee and catch the queen bee in a safe manner and bring the whole swarm back to the artificial beehive. And then management of the bees during different season. During particular seasons of the year, the availability of flowers will be low, particularly during winter and autumn. So, during such seasons, one must provide artificial feed for the honeybees to survive, and handling and collection of the honey and bee wax. Honeybees are pollinators of crop. When a honeybee visits a flower, while collecting nectar, the pollens from the flowers get stuck in the body of the honeybee, and when the same honeybee visits another flower, it causes pollination, it transfers the pollen from one flower to the another, and this is beneficial both for the apiculture component as well as for the agricultural crop component. Some of the crops where honeybees are the important pollinators are sunflower, brassica species like mustard, apple and pear. The last component of animal husbandry is fisheries. Fisheries is the catching or rearing, processing and selling of aquatic animals, which include fish, mollusks like shellfish and edible oysters, crustaceans like crab, prawns and lobster and other aquatic animals. The types of fishes are freshwater fish and marine fish. Freshwater fish includes particularly in India are katla, rohu and common carp, whereas marine fish are hilsa, sardines, mackerels and pomfrets. Fisheries hold an important place in the Indian economy. It serves the purpose of it provides income employment or livelihood to the fishermen and farmers, particularly at the coastal states of the country. Increasing demands have forced due to the increasing demand, different techniques have been introduced to increase the production, which in turn develops and flourishes the fisheries industry. So, the management practices, the adoption of management practices for improving the yield out of fisheries or fishery industry is called blue revolution. Fisheries are broadly classified into aquaculture and pisciculture. Aquaculture is the rearing of any aquatic animal, whereas pisciculture is the rearing of exclusively fishes. The second unit in strategies for enhancement of food production is plant breeding. Plant breeding is the systemic way of breeding new genetic crop varieties. It has 5 important steps, which are collection of variability, evaluation and selection of parents, cross hybridization among the selected parents, selection and testing of superior recombinants, testing, release and commercialization of new cultivars. The first and the foremost important step is collection of variability. It is the root or the base of any plant breeding, where plant breeders go in search of different types of crop plants or the wild relatives of the known crop plants from remote and wild areas. This pre-existing genetic variability present in these wild relatives and species, in search of which plant breeders go under the term called exploration, is the source for the downstream plant breeding steps. So, by this way, the natural genes and alleles are exploited for improvement of the crop plants through plant breeding. The germplasm is the entire collection of diverse allele of all genes of a given crop. So, germplasm includes different types or the varieties of a particular crop. It also includes the wild relatives of a particular crop. So, this has a collection of all the alleles for a particular gene, or at times even has a novel gene for a particular trait. So, after collection of variability, evaluation of selection of parents, this collected types of plants are evaluated for different parameters. That is, plants with desirable combinations and characters are identified, and these identified. Germplasm is evaluated for different parameters such as fruit size, bigger fruit size or more number of fruits, or dwarf stature of the plant, or high yielding capacity, or disease resistance, or pest resistance. So, after selecting the collected after evaluating the collected germplasm, these are either these are multiplied, which could be used for hybridization, that is for crossing or plant breeding, or if everything is okay, they are used as pure lines as such. So, after evaluation of this germplasm, these lines which are selected are called parents for the further crosses. Now, cross hybridization among the selected parents. So, the parents selected out of the evaluation of germplasm are crossed with each other to combine desirable qualities in the F1 progeny. Either if the F1 progeny and the production of hybrids or the process of crossing is a time consuming and a tedious process wherein the pollen from the male parent is collected and deposited over the stigma of the selected female parent. Now, these hybrids or the progenies produced out of this hybridization are evaluated, which is selection and testing of superior recombinants, that is the recombinants between the selected parents are selected and tested. Either the hybrids are used as such if they are possessing the desirable qualities, or they are self pollinated for several generations to increase the uniformity or homozygosity to produce pure lines. Now, these hybrids or the pure lines are tested, released and commercialized for as new varieties. After these recombinants, which either could be hybrids or pure lines, are selected, these are evaluated at several locations of the country which represent the different agroclimatic zones, both in research field as well as farmer fields, to see whether this developed recombinant is suitable for that particular area or not. These are grown in ideal conditions with ideal fertilizer and irrigation. The traits they are evaluated are for our yield and other agronomic traits like height, grain size, quality, disease resistance and etc. These new recombinants are compared with the already performing varieties which the farmers used for cultivation, which are called checks or references. Plant breeding is the purposeful manipulation of plant species. So, why is this manipulation done? This is done to create desired plant types better which are better suited for cultivation, which are having better yields and which are disease resistant and other useful desirable characters. Conventional plant breeding has been practiced for 1000 years by mankind from the beginning of human civilization. There are even records that plant breeding was practiced 9000 to 11,000 years ago. The traits nowadays, the traits or the characters of interest for plant breeders to incorporate into the crops for crop improvement are increased crop yield, improved quality, increased tolerance to environmental stresses like salinity, extreme temperature and drought, resistance to pathogens and increased tolerance to insect pests. Let us first see the plant breeding for disease resistance. Diseases are caused by pathogens such as fungal, bacterial and viral pathogens. This causes an yield loss of 20 to 30% usually, or sometimes even a total yield loss occurs. So, the resistance to such diseases is required, which is defined as the ability to prevent the pathogen from causing the diseases, and this is determined by the genetic constitution of the host plant. So, particular host plant does not have resistance, so it could be improved by crossing it with a resistant liner. This also reduces the dependency on chemicals such as fungicides and bactericides. The important information to be known by a plant breeder for breeding against disease resistance is the causative organism, which pathogen causes that disease, and the mode of transmission. Some diseases are the brown rust in wheat, red rot of sugarcane, late blight in potato, black rot in crucifers, that is the cabbage, mustard, cauliflower, etc. Tobacco mosaic virus in tobacco, turnip mosaic virus in turnip. So, why are these pathogens bothering agriculture? It is because these brown, in the case of red rot of sugarcane and lead blight of potato, the pathogen consumes the economical part of the crop which otherwise is consumed by humans, whereas in the case of other diseases, the brown rust in wheat, black rot in crucifers, tobacco mosaic virus, turnip mosaic virus, they reduce the green cover of the leaves. So, this in turn reduces the photosynthetic efficiency of the leaves and thus causes an yield loss. A special type of breeding is mutation breeding. Do you remember I told you the first point or the first step in plant breeding is collection of variability. People go in search of new lines or wild relatives of a particular plant to collect the genetic variability, but at some times the collected genetic variability is either not sufficient or does not solve the particular purpose. At those cases, we induce the genetic variability through the process of mutation. So, in conventional breeding, hybridizations and selection is the process, just as we discussed earlier. Lines with desirable traits are selected and hybridized to produce progenies which are selected. So, in short, it is hybridization and selection, and the availability of the gene and allele for this process is limited to the wild relatives, that is the germplasm just collected. So, in order to artificially induce mutation, gamma radiation or certain chemicals are used which causes mutation, which is a sudden and heritable change in the DNA sequence. So, this change in DNA sequence causes genetic variation which in turn creates new characters or traits. In mung bean or green gram, mung bean yellow mosaic virus or powdery mildew are two diseases which reduce the yield of green gram or mung bean, which was avoided by creating mutations in the green gram or mung bean germplasms and made them resistant. This is a list of varieties of crops for which resistance has been developed through plant breeding. Now, let us take a look at the plant breeding for insect resistance. How could a crop exhibit resistance to an insect? It could be either morphological or biochemical or physiological. Morphologically, hairy leaves avoid jacids in cotton. This insect pest is called jacids, and cereal leaf beetle in wheat. These two are unable or will find it difficult to infest or attack a crop plant if the leaves are hairy. Similarly, solid stems are resistant against stem sawfly in wheat. Smooth leaves and nectarless cotton are resistant against bollworms. So, there is a small nectar gland at the lower side of the cotton leaves which attracts insects and other pests. So, though the cotton lines with nectarless leaves are resistant to bollworm. Boll is the part which is produced after the fertilization of the cotton flower. which inside which the cotton fiber is produced. And high aspartic acid, low nitrogen and sugar in maize is resistant to stem borer. This is the larval form of a stem borer which bores holes in the stem of the maize, which damages the leaves and the stem. So, these are the morphological and the biochemical traits or characters which are to be identified in plant breeding among different lines, and then those lines are selected for crossing, which could improve the resistance against the insect pests. This is a table showing the varieties of crops in which resistance to these pests have been improved. So, after independence, our country had a big challenge of producing enough food for the growing population. So, in order to overcome this, in the mid 1960s, high yielding varieties of rice and wheat were introduced. Today, India is an agricultural country, with agriculture contributing 33% to the GDP and employs nearly 62% of the Indian population. After independence, India faced a challenge of producing enough food for the growing population. So, in mid 1960s, high yielding varieties of rice and wheat were introduced. So, the increase in the production of wheat and rice from 1960 to 2000 was, there was an increase from 11 million tons to 75 million tons in wheat, whereas in rice there was an increase from 35 million tons to 89.5 million tons. This main increase, these improved high yielding varieties were due to the semi dwarf nature of these crops, that is, taller plants lodge if during when there is heavy wind. So, a semi dwarf variety was tolerant to this heavy wind. So, Norman E. Borlaug, the father of Green Revolution, a Nobel laureate, developed these semi dwarf varieties in International Center for Wheat and Maize Improvement in Mexico, which is called as CIMMYT. So, based upon these lines, Indian wheat varieties Sonalika and Kalyan Sona were developed and released in 1963. Similarly, in the case of rice, in International Rice Research Institute, which is in Philippines, the rice variety IR8 and the rice variety Taichung Native 1 from Taiwan were used to develop the varieties Jaya and Ratan and were released in 1966. And other examples of plant breeding are, in the case of sugarcane, the species Saccharum barberi was cultivated in the northern region of India, but it was poor in sugar content and yield, whereas the species Saccharum officerum, which was cultivated in the southern region of India, had thicker stems and higher sugar content. So, these two lines were hybridized to produce an improved sugarcane variety which had thicker stems, higher sugar content and better yield, which are suitable to be grown in the northern region of India. And millets include grains other than cereals, which are maize, jowar or sorghum, and bajra or pearl millet. These were important in agricultural cultivation in water stressed area, because these were resistant to water stress. So, the adoption of management practices and other components to improve the agricultural yield was called as green revolution. Now, let us take a look at plant breeding for improved food quality. Nearly 840 million people are unable to meet the daily food and nutritional requirement, and 3 billion people are suffering from hidden hunger. That is, these people are having sufficient food for consumption, but they are lacking micronutrients, proteins, vitamins. That is, they are suffering from deficiencies of the other micronutrients. Because they are unable to afford enough fruits, vegetable, legumes, fish and meat which are rich in these nutrients. These micronutrients, particularly iron, vitamin A, iodine and zinc deficiency, increases the risk of diseases, reduces the lifespan and reduces the mental abilities. So, in order to overcome this, crop plants are improved with these qualities, which is called as biofortification. It is the most practical means for breeding crops for higher levels of vitamin, mineral, protein and healthier fats or oils. Examples are maize hybrids in 2002 was produced, which had 2 times the amino acids, particularly the lysine and tryptophan, which are the base. Amino acids are the base for proteins. The wheat variety Atlas 66 is usually used as a donor in plant breeding programs to improve the protein, to increase the protein content in wheat. Rice with iron fortified 5 times higher than the natural iron content were developed. In the Indian Agricultural Research Institute, which is at Delhi, various crops have been developed for improved micronutrients such as vitamin A, vitamin C, iron, calcium and proteins. So, the third unit of strategies for enhancement of food production is single cell protein. Single cell proteins are microbes, these which could serve as an alternate source for proteins for both humans and animal consumption. These are not only rich in protein, they are also rich in minerals, fats, carbohydrates and vitamins. Nearly 25% of the humans are suffering from hunger and malnutrition. And to produce 1 kilogram of meat, nearly 3 to 10 kilogram of cereal grains are required. So, and these single cell proteins could be an alternate source of food for both humans and animals. An example is the blue green algae called spirulina. The advantage of this blue green algae spirulina is the following substrates can be used for its production: wastewater from potato processing plants which are rich in carbohydrates, straw molasses, that is the juice from the straw, hay, straw and hay which is produce of after the harvest of certain crops, animal manures and even sewage post after processing, proper processing. So, this not only serves as a substrate for the production of spirulina, but also reduces the environmental pollution, because otherwise these would be let into the environment. Another example of single cell protein is Methylophilus methylotrophus, which has a higher rate of growth and biomass production, which has the potential of producing up to 25 tons, that is 25,000 kilograms of proteins. One may think how to consume an algae as such. These single cell proteins are available in powdered form as well as in the form of tablets. So, one may consume it just like edible mushroom, which are actually fungi. The fourth and the last unit of this chapter is tissue culture. In 1950s, scientists observed that a whole plant could be regenerated from any part of the plant and named it totipotency. That is, you isolate or you use any part of the plant, leaf, seed or anything, or root or anything, and you can develop a whole plant from that part of the plant. So, that any part of the plant from which the whole plant is regenerated is called explant. So, the potential or the capacity of regenerating a whole plant from any part of the plant, that is explant, is called totipotency. So, this is performed in vitro, that is outside the living organism, in test tube or culture dish, that is in artificial conditions, but with the requirement of a sterile condition and a special nutrient media. So, this is a tissue culturally, all these are tissue culturally raised plants. So, this is called a callus. These are cells developed and multiplied from an explant which is on a specialized nutrient media. Can you see the small leaves and roots developing from this callus, and this is a somewhat matured plantlets developed from the explant. These must be raised on a special nutrient media which contains a carbon source, usually sucrose, other inorganic salts for other elements, vitamins, amino acids, growth regulator or plant hormones such as auxin and cytokinin, and these are to be maintained in a sterile condition. Actually, this is inside a glass jar to avoid contamination, that is growth of unwanted other microorganisms. So, the advantage of tissue culture is a large number of plants could be produced in a short duration, and it is termed as micro propagation. So, these large number of plants produced through tissue culture or micro propagation are genetically identical to the original plants, because everything which develops is from this explant. So, the progenies are of this same genetic constitution of this explant, and these progenies are called somoclones, that is they are clones, and soma means body, because these are produced from the plants of the plant body, not through asexual propagation. So, these are called somoclones. This has been micro propagation has been demonstrated in tomato, banana, apple and other crop species as well. One application or one use of micro propagation is virus free meristem tip culture. So, this is performed to recover healthy plants from diseased plants, even if they are infected by virus. The meristem, or which either apical or axillary are sampled to create to set up a virus free meristem tip culture. So, this is a crop called cassava or tapioca. It is a tuber crop like potato. It is infected by a virus called cassava mosaic virus. So, it causes this mosaic pattern on the leaves. So, this reduces the green part of the leaf, thus reduces the photosynthetic efficiency and eventually reduces the yield. But the meristems of this infected plant, that is the apical and the axillary meristem, where the new leaves are going to be formed, will usually be free from viruses. So, those meristems are collected and cultured over this special nutrient media in sterile condition. So, these meristems then gradually develop into a whole plant, which afterwards could be raised as a normal plant in the field. Another type, special type of tissue culture is called somatic hybridization. In somatic hybridization, protoplasts, that is cells only with plasma membrane, are isolated by digestion of the cell wall. That is, cells are isolated and the cell wall is digested to produce a cell with only plasma membrane, which is called a protoplast. So, protoplasts from two different species are fused together, which is called somatic hybridization, and the resultant are called somatic hybrid. This is a somatic hybrid. Here the green part is the protoplast from a leaf cell, whereas the red pigmented part is the protoplast from a petal. So, these are fused to produce a somatic hybrids. These are modern technologies which have certain advantages compared to the already discussed plant breeding techniques. So, in summary, for improving the food production, certain strategies have to be followed, which include proper management practices in the farms, both in dairy and poultry farm in animal husbandry. If the animals have to be improved, animal breeding is practiced, where a breeder selects breeds or animals with desirable qualities to produce a desirable progeny. And beekeeping and fishery are the other components of animal husbandry, which have an important role in the Indian economy. And the second major portion deals with the plants, where plants or crop plants are hybridized in certain systemic fashion to develop crop varieties resistant to diseases, insects, and to improve the food quality, like micronutrient and other essential nutrients. And single cell protein is an alternate source of food which provides higher protein, especially in addition to other nutrients. And the last is tissue culture, which is a modern technique which has greater capabilities to overcome the disadvantages of plant breeding. So, if you wish to take a closer look at plant tissue culture, you can ask your teachers to contact us at NIPGR, National Institute of Plant Genome Research, and you can visit the tissue culture laboratories and facilities here. Thank you.